Before we get started, if you would like a free 2.5-hour wedding photography course as well as a free preset pack, get it down below. Sony 85mm F1.4 GM2 lens that I have been really enjoying. The differences from the original GM version of the 85 is that this one is lighter and technically better, but still maintains some of the characteristics that I really love. I find a lot of these characteristics also in the 35 GM, which is one of my favorite lenses for Sony as well. Now let's go take some wedding pictures, shall we?
Yes, please enjoy the golden hour. The golden shower.
You gonna try the dip with the sun?
Ready?
All right, I'm ready. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you a variety of different examples of this lens in different conditions, including the sun kind of pointed almost right down the barrel, a little bit off to the side. I'm going to show you some more direct right down the barrel examples as well. And a lot of candid coverage. Most of my wedding day is entirely candid, which is a reason that the 85mm lens is an incredible tool for me. The 85mm lens, my friend Manny Ortiz and I, we joked and called this the introvert lens, that if you don't want to get too close to people, you can use an 85. I find that I really enjoy it for the distance it gives my couples. You're probably attracting couples that are similar to you, so if you're a bit more introverted and you don't really want a camera 3 feet away from you, the close proximity of a camera makes you more uncomfortable, and if the camera's further away, you feel a little bit more at ease. If that is something that aligns with what you feel, there is a pretty good chance that probably also aligns on some level with your couples. I also love the shallow depth of field, that if there are background distractions or just locations that you don't love, you're able to make them disappear a little bit into a nice out of focus backdrop. I shoot this specific lens at f1.4 pretty much all of the time. For family photos, I might stop down a little bit, but for pretty much every other part of the day, I am at 1.4. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you some dance floor coverage with the 85. The GoPro is a little bit misleading. It's actually pretty low light, but the GoPro is enhancing the dynamic range. And as you know, Sony low light autofocus, eye autofocus is incredible, so no issues at all there. And it might not be my number one go-to for dancing coverage once the party starts, but it is my go-to for most of the reception, including speeches and first dances, and anytime that I kind of want to be out of the way a little bit. This includes that I don't want to be interrupting candid moments that are happening naturally, and I definitely don't want to be standing in front of family when there is somebody at the podium talking to them. And the f1.4 aperture will really allow me to go even into beyond candlelight, where it would be uncomfortable for people to be in the room. My camera would still be operating correctly. Now, you might ask, what are the negatives of this lens? And honestly, I know that this is a pre-production lens that Sony sent me and all those disclaimers, but I couldn't find anything negative. There were no scenes or environments that I was put in that the lens didn't perform as I expected. With that does come the price tag. It's not going to be a $500 lens. And if you are looking for something that's in a lower price point, the 85mm 1.8 is also amazing. I'm going to be doing a somewhat side-by-side comparison of those lenses on the channel, so subscribe if that is something that interests you. But yeah, the only negative is really that it's expensive because it's really good, and also maybe it's a little bit heavier than the 1.8 version. But I feel like they really found a nice blend of size and weight and quality versus cost. It's also great for details in terms of the fact that you're not seeing any purple fringing or anything going on in those high contrast points of the glassware, but I have no supporting B-roll for this scene. Let's go to another wedding. Shoot this lens more. This is a shorter booking. It is 2 hours total, and we are doing a city hall ceremony, and then we're going around the area that I live here in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and taking some pictures around town. The weather is a bit of a concern. It looks kind of okay. It was supposed to be thunderstorms all day. I think we're going to be okay. All we really need is a half an hour window to get outside. We also have my studio, which is pretty close to here, so worst case, we can go over there. There's also some covered spaces. And if you're ever photographing a wedding where it's a very small group, a lot of independent restaurants will let you get in there to take some pictures if you do buy some drinks or some food. So that is also a potential option, depending on the couple and how they're feeling. I offer up a few of these that if they want simple, bright and airy look, we can go to the studio. If they want something a little bit more vintage or retro, we can go to a restaurant that accommodates that. And it's the middle of the day, it's 2:30 on a Wednesday. So I think it's very unlikely that a restaurant would say, absolutely not, you cannot take pictures in here in the middle of the day when there's no one around and we're making no money. Tell them you'll post the pictures and you'll tag them on social media, and they'll be like, wow, that's nice, and you'll book them weddings, and then all of a sudden that restaurant's booked hundreds of thousands of dollars in weddings because you came in there one time. Sometimes it works out like that. Most of the time it doesn't. Either way, that's the cheap way to get an indoor photo location. You can also just bribe them, be like, hi, we have $50, can we use the space for half an hour? We won't get in anyone's way, we won't get you in any of the photos. Let's talk about smaller weddings right now. So for destination weddings, you're typically looking at a smaller guest count, or today we have about 10 people. And In a situation like this, I am always happy with an 85mm lens. Once the guest count gets above maybe 100 or 120, at that point, I start requiring a longer lens, or it's, I guess, personal preference. You could theoretically do the entire wedding day, and I know a lot of photographers do, with an 85 as the longest lens in their bag, but I am a little bit happier on either the Tamron 35 to 150 or a 70 to 180 or even a 70 to 200. But for a wedding with less than 100 guests, I am very happy with an 85mm lens as the longest lens in my bag. If you are shooting a camera like an A7R series that has a higher megapixel count, or an A1, you are able to crop in camera as well. So you can turn that 85mm lens until, I think the math is 127 millimeters approximately. So you're able to just crop inside your camera, so you're not cropping in post, but you kind of get a little bonus reach out of the lens. And I would say that's something that I'm absolutely using at pretty much every wedding ceremony. Even if I am using a longer lens, I tend to also use it just to get a little bit more variation in the ceremony gallery. And also, it's terrible lighting here. It's the one side, the windows are nice. Claire's in great light. The overhead light's not so good. Kind of weird orangey, sodium vapory almost colors. And I'm just showing you the 85mm lens images from today. So we did a lot of photos with 35 GM. It's important to not only show up to a wedding day with an 85 only. I am primarily, even going way back to my first weddings, I was always in a 35 and 85mm shooter. So I would have both those lenses on two camera bodies, and I would shoot them both pretty much all day. And I would say that a lot of my style, even many, many years later, it's kind of the same most of the time, that I'm usually on either a 35 or an 85 as a primary lens. And you might say, why not just split that down the middle and shoot 50? And I've tried many, many times to get comfortable with 50mm focal length. And for some reason, it just doesn't agree with my brain. I don't see that way. Maybe it's the fact that I started 35 and 85, and that's just kind of more of the way that I see the world. And I think for the final gallery delivery on a wedding day, it gives a good variety of wide and close-up images, and it just feels really nice together. Hello and welcome to another sunset shoot with the all-new Sony 85mm F1.4 G2. And today, we might get a sunset. So a few things that I love about this 85mm F1.4 is the shallow depth of field and the three-dimensional feeling to the images. The images overall just feel really, really nice, and I feel like as a wedding and portrait photographer, I feel like they very much accentuate the look that I'm going for, which isn't necessarily a crunchy, hard, everything in focus, F8 is great vibe. Just something overall a little bit softer, I would say. Not out of focus, not a lens error, but just a softer feeling image, which I feel like this 85 1.4 GM2 helps me achieve. Overall, when it comes to wedding photography with this, I like to bring as little gear as possible. Today on this shoot, I have this bag. The camera body the 85mm lens is on today is the Sony Alpha 9 Mark III. Wow, I said that brand proper. They're training me. Anytime you see a sponsored Sony video, we always have to call it the Sony Alpha 9 Mark III or the Sony Alpha 7 Mark whatever. And anytime anyone says a Sony product name in real life, it's always an A9 Mark III. And one of the things that I actually do like about having the A9 III is the fact that my shutter speed is pretty much infinite. So I can shoot at f1.4 even when it's bright and sunny. Sometimes you might have to stop down if your maximum shutter speed is 1/4000 of a second or 1/8000 of a second. There have been times where I've had to stop down a little bit because it is just too bright. With this A9 Mark III, that is not a problem at all. But overall, I'm just really enjoying the image quality from this lens. And in terms of weight, it's not that much heavier than the 1.8, I guess it is, but it's not a whole lot heavier. It's not as heavy as the 85 1.4, the original GM. And that means that I can still use a very small messenger bag on my wedding day and not have to carry anything beyond that. That everything for my entire kit goes in that bag. And this 85 fits in there. So yeah, nothing but great things to say about this lens. Very, very happy with it. I'm going to show you a few examples here of how flare kind of hits it and what that looks like. And I'm very happy with the way that this lens just handles every single situation. Three-dimensional images, shallow depth of field. It's really, really nice to use. Now, if you're interested in getting that 2.5 hour free wedding photography course, as well as my wedding day shot list and a new preset pack. There's new presets in it. So if you got the old free pack, there's new presets in it. And it also comes with some other bonuses as well. So get that in the link down below if you're interested.